Welcome. This is part 2 of making sense of the experience of neediness. In part 1, we identified how the experience of neediness develops in childhood by this lack of attention that leaves us dissatisfied because it's not been easy to satisfy our needs without attention, and a bunch of hurt and rejected feelings and negative beliefs about who we are and what people feel about us, kind of all associated together. In this video, we are going to talk about 3 ways that you can work on changing this neediness to create more satisfaction in your life. These 3 things are in no particular order and are best seen as working alongside each other. So let's take number 1. This area to work on would be described as identifying and connecting with the childhood experiences and feelings. We might refer to this as our child self that carries the wounds of neglect and rejection. We might know that we are in this part when strong feelings of wanting to be taken care of by someone comes up, or when the feelings feel young or powerless. By noticing and reflecting on and becoming more aware of the childlike parts of you, you're already giving attention to this part of you that never received attention, just through awareness. If we don't reflect on our emotional responses and become aware of this child self and the experiences that that carries, we are more likely to act it out unconsciously when that part of us gets triggered by someone in our life, and then it just takes over. So when that happens, then we see and experience the world from the perspective we learned as a child. And so the associations with the lack of attention, such as the negative beliefs about ourselves, is what we then experience as reality. Rather than noticing and becoming aware of what this part of us is holding, which then begins to separate ourselves from the past and allow a new reality to come in. So this turning towards that child self rather than away from has a profound effect in recognizing what was experienced and learned, and allows us to be less overtaken unconsciously. This is the part of us that we have spent most of our time trying to stay away from and not feel, because this is the part of us that carries the pain. So it takes a lot of courage to face it and can take a lot of time. So don't expect yourself to do this overnight. In my experience, identifying these parts of ourselves that we have spent our life pushing away needs ongoing work, and that it will come up again in our life over and over, with maybe different memories or new understandings associated with those wounded and unresolved parts of us. But each time they come up is not a confirmation that you have failed in some way or there is something wrong with you, but more that you have the opportunity to go deeper into yourself, and that this part of you still needs your compassion. Self-compassion is not a destination or a final destination, but a practice. And the more we practice it, the more we feel our self-compassion. So if you find yourself criticizing yourself for still feeling triggered into this rejection through a lack of attention, see it more as a challenge to be self-accepting of your humanity and bring kindness to that part of you. there are a number of ways you might work on developing the awareness of this child self in therapy or with yourself. Some examples might be through mindfulness or what we call inner child work or somatic work or using visualization. Whatever the method that works for you, the purpose is to identify and connect with this part of you. So a couple of possibilities to reflect and notice that may help you to connect with this child self. One that a lot of people have found useful is writing a letter to your child self, acknowledging how they survived and what it was like for them, and committing to being there for them now. Letting yourself speak from your heart to that child in you. And you can come back to that over and over again. Another possibility is when we are triggered to notice and make space to feel and reflect on how that part of you comes up in your reactions, to notice the bigger reaction to what is going on in the present. This bigger reaction will contain the unresolved pain we carry and can be a way to access the child self or that wounded part. So that's number one, working on this child self. Number two, related to number one, is connecting with your present self. That is the you that supports and takes care of you. The you that is your highest, wisest self, and the you that is awareness. You may refer to this as your adult self or spiritual self. Whatever you call it, I believe there is a self in all of us that is unaffected by life's struggles, that can just be and experience openness, curiosity, and compassion. The more trauma and disruption to our development and connection to others that happens, then this self is harder to connect with because we have had to develop strong protective parts within our emotional and mental systems, which take us away from experiencing. And this self energy is rooted in experiencing and being present. The protective parts keep us from experiencing because they develop to stop us connecting with the pain, which we talked about in step one as the child self or the wounded self. So what can happen is that we might experience self-criticism or a desire to cut off from the wounded self rather than being present to that part of us. So it kind of makes sense that it also takes time to work through these protective parts in order to be able to have more of an adult self that can then turn towards that wounded child and respond to that child part. But when we are able to build on ourself that can see the wounded part without judgment, this is really where the transformation will happen. The transformation happens when you can be present with compassion and acceptance to the wounded and hurt parts of yourself. Then you will bring the healing you need and want that you have been looking to others to provide. You are the only one who will be there for yourself in a way that can help heal this pain. Other people in your life cannot rectify all those years of neglect and abandonment, unfortunately. They may love you and they may want the best for you, and that is important to experience. But the difficulty arises when somebody in your life says no or is unable to give you attention, and that disappointment is so crushing and big because this child self feels that as another abandonment. But you can give attention and often with the help of a therapist, heal the pain of hurt and rejection that you carry. So that's number 2. We've got the child self, we've got the adult self, and that's a lot. The third area, though, is working on changing your responses in relationships. Working on 1 and 2 is definitely going to have an effect on your relationships, but you can also become aware of some of the things and the ways you may be showing up with others in your life that is affected by the neediness around attention. Whatever that is, being indirect and manipulating connection and attention, or blaming and resenting people for not giving you attention when they are unable to. These are the areas that we can pay attention to. And there are a number of ways that you might be indirect and manipulative. Let me give you an example of what I used to do. So in relationships, what I would do is I would be affectionate. Now that sounds all very well, and who wouldn't want affection? And that's true. Affection is a good thing. However, it was giving other people affection in order to get that feeling of being special to them or connected to them. And it didn't really matter whether they wanted affection. And so there was this kind of forcing myself upon those people in my life. Often when I felt anxious or something was going on for me and I needed that connection to feel better. And I would be affectionate with people as a way of getting attention and connection indirectly. So in relationships, things that you can pay attention to, maybe questions that you can ask yourself to help you become more aware and work on changing those dynamics. You might ask yourself, am I treating this person as a separate person in their own right? What story am I creating about when they are unable to give me attention? For example, can I see it as simply they are distracted, or does it mean so much more? What are the ways I am indirectly trying to get attention, and can I ask more directly? Okay, thank you for joining me today. And if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. And remember to click the subscribe button to receive notifications of more videos to come. Let me know in the comments about what made sense to you or what didn't. Until next time.